Aloha, and welcome to this week's video. So this week I'm going to be working on a custom piece, as you can see by my little terrible sketch right there. It's going to be a double-sided axe. The design influences for this piece are a mix between like a Viking style like bearded axe and Hawaiian influences. It's going to be a mix of the two. I'm actually making this piece for another channel. I'll be once I get a little bit further along in the piece, maybe next week or the week after, I'll be posting that information. But for now, we're just going to start working. So I'm going to be using this really beautiful piece of curly koa. It's a little bit thicker of a piece, which is perfect for what I need. It's about 1.25 inches thick. And I'm going to be using this for both the double-sided axe, the head section, as well as the handle. Now, I'm not making it all out of one solid piece. The handle is going to fit into the axe head just like you would like a regular metal axe head, and then it has an eye and the wood fits into that and gets wedges into place. The primary difference is I'm not going to be wedging this into place. The reason why I'm not going to wedge it into place is because the stress that wedge puts on the material could potentially split the wood axe head, and I don't want to do that. So instead, what I'm going to do once I have this put into place is I'll probably glue it and peg it. And that way it'll have a nice solid structural hold, and it will be able to sit on there pretty tight. Now, I'm not going to be doing too much work on the handle. I am going to be doing a little bit of work on the handle. So I do want the mortise and tenon joint, which is kind of what this is going to be, to go all the way through the axe head. And so because of that, I'm going to be rough sketching out the axe handle, but not actually cutting it out. The only section I'm going to cut out is going to be that top section where the handle is going to sit into place. And the reason for that is so that I can start working on cutting out that mortise and tenon joint and getting that ready for inset. It's hard to tell right here, but I also put, it's right there on the base of the axe head, I put a small notch into place. And so my plan there is the handle is going to fit into that notch so that the curvature on the handle matches perfectly with the curvature on the axe, and so you get a seamless joint between the two. I wanted to do that just because I thought it would look really nice, and it would kind of hide any imperfections on the joint and make for a little bit stronger of a hold. Now I'm going to be cutting this out on my bandsaw. The piece of wood that I'm using here was actually ripped recently. I had my resawing blade on my bandsaw, so I had to take that off and put on my, I think this is a 5/8 inch or 3/8. No, it's a 3/8 inch blade. So it does a pretty good job cutting those corners, and I was able to cut out the axe head almost perfectly on my design layout, which will save a lot of time later on. But before I get too far in that, I'm going to start marking and getting ready to cut in the mortise and tenon joint. So I'm using a little blank here, and this is going to be used to trace the handle material onto the axe head so that everything is in line. One thing that I'm really nervous about, there's really no way for me, I mean, I guess I could spend a lot more time measuring and be a lot more confident in my angles, but I'm very nervous about whether or not I line this up straight so that the inset, that little notch, matches perfectly with the handle material. I won't really know until I'm ready to fit the whole thing together. So it's a little bit of a nerve-wracking point, but we'll see how it goes. So the first step here is I just drilled out as much of the material as I could with some drill bits and try to get it close to it. And then after that, I'm going to be cleaning it up and shoring everything into place with my chisel set here. This was just a really long back and forth process. I don't remember how much time I spent on this, but this was the majority of the time. I wanted to be very careful. I wanted it to be a nice snug fit, while at the same time not being too tight. I don't want to put any stress on the walls of the axe head. So once I have it glued into place, the axe body and axe head are going to kind of fuse together. The wood glue will kind of fuse those two materials together, but at the same time, the primary structural hold now is not the thick wooden body. It's now just those two thinner, they're about a 1/4 inch thick on each side, maybe a little bit thicker. And so I just want to be really careful not to put too much stress on those because I don't want to crack them. Now the grain does go a long ways, so the grain helps prevent it from cracking. If the grain was going up and down, then I'd be at a really high risk of cracking somewhere on the corners of where I'm putting in this joint. But because the grain is going long ways, so perpendicular, it'll help give it some strength and stability. And it's just a ton of back and forth, smoothing it out, sanding it together. I don't have a lot of high precision tools, and so everything is kind of done off of feel and off of sight. But once I get to a close enough point, I'll be able to start test fitting it into place and starting to see where it's getting stuck, where it's hanging up on. And then I just go back and forth again. So I'm using a mixture of metal files, sandpaper, chisels, and just slowly working it through. I want to be careful not to gouge anything, and then I'm using that little template to see if it gets stuck anywhere, and that'll tell me if I've got any spots in there that are sticking out too far. What's crazy is when the tolerances are really tight, it doesn't take a whole lot for it to get stuck and not want to move, and so I have to be really careful with that. I finally got it to a good spot after working it for maybe a few days. Just taking my time and going slow. If I had some other tools, it'd probably be really fast. I know there's some square drill bits that you can connect to like a drill press, but I don't have a drill press and I don't have the square drill bits. So it's all done by hand with minimal tools, which I guess is kind of a fun thing because then anyone could make this with just minimal tools. You don't need a whole lot of fancy tools, although the fancy tools would speed up this process by a significant amount. So I finally got this into a good spot. I finally got it to where it will fit into place. And here was the final test to see if I had aligned my joint perfectly with my inset. If it's not aligned perfectly, the inset will snag and it won't be a perfect or clean connection between the body and the axe head. And so I was really nervous about this because this could have been just an absolute failure. But every once in a while you get lucky and it fits perfect, and this was one of those times, so I was super pleased. Well, this was all I had this week, or at least all I had the time for this week. Next week I'm going to be working on probably the axe head, maybe the body, and then the week after the inverse. So I'm hoping to have this done within the next 2 weeks. I hope you enjoy the piece. If you liked it, leave me a comment and a like and a subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. Mahalo plenty for everyone that joined me, and I'll see you next time. Aloha.